Welcome back to another interview at Launders Lan 2. I am with the illustrious DarfMike. Darf, how have you been?
Illustrious, apparently. I've been good. Coming off of the winter break, nice time with family, home, that kind of stuff. Cooking a lot of chicken soup, thriving. So,
Amazing. My first question to everybody has been, what is your New Year's CS resolution?
My New Year's CS resolution, native.
You're the second person to answer like that. I appreciate that.
My New Year's CS resolution. I'd like to work a major this year. That's largely outside of my control, but fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, actually, you talk about that. I have my first question here for you. You become a bit of a jack of all trades when it comes to what you've done at events. I know a lot of hosting recently has popped up. Is there anything specific you're working on to make kind of your thing, the what you're known for when you go to these big events?
I really enjoy doing different aspects of broadcasts. I think hosting has worked very nicely for me, and I'm very pleased with it. In terms of what kind of hosting, I enjoy expanding my repertoire a lot. Like, I think that there's a lot of different hats in a broadcast, and I like becoming more proficient at all of them. I think if there's one thing that I really want to work on this year, it's I got a crack at actual stage hosting at Dallas last year. And while I think there were a lot of good moments, I think overall I could have done a much better job with it. It was my first time doing the full stage gig, and I've done the in-arena, I've done some things on stage, but this was definitely a little bit of a different beast. And I was also taking all the in-arena entertainment work, so it was a challenge for sure. And I think if I get another chance, another opportunity at that, which, knock on wood, hopefully I will, I could do a better job with it. So I guess that's something I want to work on. But in terms of my focus, it really just depends on where the opportunities are, right? I think versatility behooves me in that aspect. So I really enjoy. I mean, desk hosting is really fun. I love working on. It's like different parts of the show, right? Desk hosting is more about working with the ensemble and making the ensemble look good. Stage hosting is more about like the spectacle, if that makes sense, the big moments, the player interviews, the emotions of the trophy lift, the win, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then arena is more like working with the audience, working directly with people, talking to people, sharing their enthusiasm, channeling it. So it's like very different aspects of what's fun about them, but I think it's cool to find the unique thing that makes each one interesting.
For sure. Amazing. Let me scroll up. I lost my spot here. I got a bit of a specific one, I guess. So I just want to get your thoughts with the culture around the lands kind of returning after COVID and everything like that. We've seen a lot of frags pop up. Now we have Launders Lands come in. What's something about the culture of lands that you really enjoy?
I think it's awesome. I think the NA scene's in a better place than it has been since COVID. And maybe before. I mean, hard to speak to. COVID was really quite decimating. But I think that having these grassroots events, having them packed out, having teams sold out, having teams travel out, is really good for the culture, both in terms of like creating that connection between audience and players, lowering the barrier of, there's these teams that are going off to Europe to compete. But you come to a Launders Lan and, NRG's sitting there and you can play them in groups and probably get shit on. But maybe you get your clip against, OC and the boys, and suddenly that's the clip that you're going to be saving and showing everyone for forever. And so I think that's one of the beautiful things of esports in general, is that the barriers between skill levels can be a lot shorter, a lot less dividing, if that makes sense. And then I also think that it's really good for player development, right? Because you have these kids who are coming through who are playing a lot of online Counter-Strike, and you never really know how a player's actually going to be in a competitive environment until they're playing LAN, until they have the pressures of LAN, until they're in person, maybe a little less comfortable than at home. I mean, that changes things. And so getting that experience earlier on in your career, or even, your hobby or that kind of thing, can really either give that experience and that seasoning or ignite that spark to chase it further. So I think it's really awesome. I think it's been super cool to see the community support. I mean, this place is packed, right?
Yes.
People are playing, people are watching, it's a vibe.
Mm-hmm, for sure. To kind of follow up on that then, with the success that Malbs has had and kind of the big shuffle that we're seeing right now with all the Tier 2 NA players kind of making their moves, are we approaching a renaissance in terms of these NA teams? So yeah, look, there we go. If you want to show the camera that, he's wearing his Malbs G2 jersey. That's perfect.
That's the number 12 player of the year right there, motherfucker. That's
yes.
Some respect.
We'll get back to that. But I mean, you look at players that like Twists and Elige or potentially Elige. That's not confirmed yet. But Malbs, the archetype of they gain their experience in NA and then they move to EU onto those top EU teams. Is that something we might see more of as NA kind of builds back up in a way?
I think ideally you wind up in a place where there's more events in North America, where competing in North America is more of a path towards the top more consistently. I think that we have seen the environment improve, but I think that right now, if you want to play top NCS, there's still a big draw, especially for the superstar type players, to go to Europe for the consistency of events, consistency of teammates, of structure, of that kind of thing. But I think ideally we wind up in a place where that's not necessary, right? Where the best of majority North American rosters and talent and competing here in North America can go toe-to-toe with Europe on a regular basis. But right now, just the consistency and quality of practice makes that more difficult. The travel demands of playing almost all of your events in Europe makes that a lot more difficult. So I do see that being like, I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming trend, but I think it makes sense that, you know, the outliers, the top of the top, who are really knocking against the ceiling of what they can achieve in North America, travel to Europe to see if they can push that ceiling higher.
Kind of talking about the events and how many events there are kind of coming up. You know, you have potentially a busy schedule coming up as somebody who works in the events. I'm not going to say yes or no to that. But what do you do?
I don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't know yet. What do you do? You know, how do you find that you're able to balance your workload out enough over the year, kind of thing? Like, is that something you really work towards, to find balance everywhere? It's not a great question, I know.
No, it's a fine question. It's just not a great answer, which is that I am a freelancer and I don't have a lot of control over that aspect of my life. I'm not in such a place. Some people are a little more established and maybe have a little bit more of an idea of what they're potentially working. But I think that right now, especially coming into 2025, where we have a little bit of this Wild West mentality coming in, where, like, you know, partner circuits are dead, things are open, there's more events, the calendar is going to be very packed. I don't think anyone really knows what they're doing yet in this year. So I think you wind up in this situation where, without knowing what the future looks like, it's very hard to ever say no to anything in the short term. So I think in terms of setting your own work-life balance, that's very challenging with the position that I'm in particular. Now, that being said, I love the job. It's great. It's awesome. I love travel. I love all those things. It would be better to be able to plan a little bit further in advance, but, you know, if that's the sacrifice I make, that's the sacrifice I make. I think that this year, one of the things that I'm focusing on for my own sake of finding that balance and finding that shift is trying to move away from some of, and again, this is, I guess, knock on wood, this is maybe also not true, so don't come for me if this is not true. I am hoping that this is a year where I will transition away from doing some of the online work in terms of ECL, in terms of qualifiers. I've held off on committing to some of those because I found that last season in particular, I went on a stretch of travel, which was very busy in a good way, in a very good way. I had a lot of events, you know, EWC into Cologne, into Pro League, into Blast Copenhagen, into Atlanta, into Challenger Katowice. Like, there was just a lot, which is awesome. And I really love doing that. But the problem was that the gaps in between those were often full of qualifiers and online work that I had committed to before I knew I was going to have all of that work. And so that creates a situation where you just don't necessarily have the correct time to breathe in between work engagements. And so I think something hype just happened out there.
Something big just happened outside, yeah.
In an ideal world, I'll commit to fewer of the online work, to less of the online work. And that will allow me to have more dedicated sort of time off, recovery time, deal with personal things, spend time with, you know, family, the girlfriend, dog, that kind of thing. When I am home and away from events, because the reality of event work is that, you know, when you're away, as much fun as it is to travel somewhere and do what we do, I think it's amazing. I'm so privileged to be able to do it. But your time is not your own, right? You're basically selling your days to a company to do their broadcast, right? So you just don't have as much control over your schedule or what you're doing. It's hard to have that balance. So I think hopefully making adjustments in terms of the work that I do when I am home is the way that I'll do that. But again, that just depends on how much I know. Because if I can't project out what I'm going to have, then the things that I do have available, I'm going to take. Even if at the end of the day, I may overcommit myself a little bit because got bills to pay.
Yeah, that is definitely the thing that kind of comes to the end of it all. You got life commitments. Final question then for you here, and I know it's still the first day. We're still kind of going through the first group here. You know, we saw Lake here last year before his big ascension up into M80 to really join that, and he was already on the eyes of people before he came here. But you know, Launders Lan, Lake, big thing. Have you seen anybody here that you're kind of keeping an eye on that people should be looking out for moving forward after Launders Lan too?
I don't think I've watched enough games. Frankly, we got a little cheeky land delay. I don't think I've seen enough of the tournament to really answer that. I didn't really think about Lake too hard until he was popping off in playoffs last time around. So it's kind of right now, in groups, it's a little bit of separating the wheat from the chaff a little bit. Of just, some people are going to come here and get dumpstered. That's what I do when I go to LAN. I go there, I have some fun in groups. I'm gone by day 2. I know what I am. That's fine. Plenty of people are here to have a good time and do that. That's a wonderful thing to do. So I think when the competition gets a little stiffer, I think we'll see if anyone gives NRG a run for their money. That'll be someone to keep an eye on for sure. But yeah, I don't know yet.
Nothing yet.
Basically,
I mean, you could just let's put like Daps or something down right now on the list. He's
Yeah,
not even
young
playing.
talent.
Young talent. He's Canadian, great kid. I heard wonderful things. We'll just put Daps down as the player to keep an eye on for.
Bright
Darf,
future.
thank you so much for the interview.
Yeah,
I will
absolutely.
try and
Oh,
get
hold
his
on.
hand out. Here we go.
Here we
I
go.
got it better at it. Thank you so much for the interview. That's going to be it for this interview. Thank you very much.